We just heard this crazy allegation that attorneys on retainer is just like all of these other insurance-backed self-defense programs. Psh, we're going to break that down for you today. Hey everybody, this is attorney Andy Marcantel and attorney Marc J. Victor. We are the partners of the Attorneys for Freedom law firm here today to talk about a rather dubious allegation that we found on the internet. What's up, Mark?
Yeah, we saw this video because one of our members sent it over and said, hey, check this video. There's this lawyer out there, and he's trying to lump the Attorneys on Retainer program in with all these other programs. I said, really? And he said, yeah, you got to watch it. So I watched it, and I've been looking forward to making this video.
Actually, there's so much to this. Let me roll up my sleeves here, Mark, because we got a lot to cover here. And I think kind of the big place to start is the 30,000-foot view. I think I would say the message of what this video was.
Yeah.
And that message is that, look, you know, there are these prepaid legal programs and there are these insurance-backed self-defense programs, and they're all just basically the same. You trade a little bit here of a benefit and you lose a little benefit here and everything.
What you should do is you should get a lawyer on retainer, or you should get a prepaid legal service. Hate to be the guy to break it to you, but those are just different names for, you guessed it, insurance. They don't even work differently. They just have different names, different coverages, different premiums, and different exclusions.
Was that your general impression of what he was trying to say?
Absolutely. You know, I understand why they want to lump us all together, right? They would love it if we were very similar or the same kind of a program, because I think we've kind of shaken up the industry a bit. To my knowledge, we're the only law firm doing this, but that's why this is going to be such a fun video. So let's just get right into it.
Before we dive into this video, I think it's super important to acknowledge a couple of things about Mr. Reeves, who we did a little bit of research on. Looked at a few of his videos, looked him up online, things like that. He seems like a good lawyer to us.
I think so. He seems like a competent lawyer. I have no reason to think that he's not excited about practicing law. Seems like a bright guy. Seems like an ethical guy. So I don't want anybody to take this video is us trying to bag on Mr. Reeves. He's a fellow brother criminal defense lawyer. I know he does some other things as well. So I want to give him the credit that he deserves and the respect that he deserves as a fellow member of the bar.
That's a good way to frame the conversation. I think where he starts is by saying, okay, here's all the reasons that prepaid legal are the same as insurance-backed companies. First of all, distinguishing our program from prepaid legal for people is really important, that they understand the difference there. What do you want to say about that, Mark?
I think you might be able to say there are, different varieties of programs out there, right? There are insurance-based programs, and we, or maybe I have ad nauseum gone through many of the contracts with the insurance-based companies here, and we know what the problems are, and we know exactly what to look for, right? I mean, the bottom line is insurance companies can't cover criminal acts. No, that doesn't mean that if you're charged with a criminal act, they can't say, okay, we're going to cover this, at least for a little while, right? Because where they live is sort of in this area where they say, well, you're presumed innocent. You're charged with a crime. It's just an allegation at this point. And we've looked at it and we've decided that this is a legitimate act of self-defense. And so the better of these companies, the insurance-based ones, will start coverage just like they did with the Kayla Giles case, right? They cut a check for $50,000 to her lawyer. But then at some point, for some reason, they decided, we don't really think this is a valid self-defense suit, so they sort of pulled the plug on that. The Alan Coley case is another one where the insurance-based company looked at it and said, this doesn't look good at all. We're not covering it. Unfortunately for them, Mr. Coley went to trial with a public defender and got a not guilty based on self-defense. So it requires them to make judgments at the beginning. And so if they decide that, okay, it's a valid self-defense incident, and then you take a plea or you're found guilty. And remember, a very high percentage of people in the criminal justice system take a plea. That's right. Doesn't mean it's a bad outcome, right? I mean, you can imagine a very serious charge. You might take a plea to some misdemeanor or something. It could be a great outcome, but you've still pled guilty to something. And as we have shown ad nauseum, some of the other companies will very honestly come out and say all coverage ends at that moment.
Right.
Coverage stops in the event of a conviction.
Which, of course, creates all kinds of problems, right? I mean, who's going to do the sentencing? Yeah, you may have some great coverage on appeal, but if all coverage ends,
how can any of these companies even advertise that they do appeals?
Right.
The only way you get to an appeal is if there's a criminal conviction, which none of them can cover.
What a mess, huh? And then also civil coverage. Yeah, sure, you got this great civil coverage unless you took a deal or you were found guilty on the criminal side. Okay, so that's the problems with the insurance-based kind of programs. Then there are prepaid legal programs. Most of these programs really aren't self-defense type programs. I just happen to have with me, who knew, just showed up right here. I guess we'll put it up like this. This is the Manual on Professional Conduct. It's an ABA, American Bar Association ethics opinion. They have a formal opinion, 87-355. I got this from my ethics counsel. And there's all kinds of stuff I've highlighted in here. But essentially, a prepaid legal program is when you have non-lawyers. It's a company. And then what they do is they advertise a program, and then they hire participating lawyers, third-party lawyers who do not own the prepaid legal program, and they provide discounted services. You might get a few things for free, right? You might get a consultation. Sometimes you get a simple will or something like that. And then if you have some service that's covered, and oftentimes they'll cover criminal. I mean, look, I used to be a provider for one of these programs. I can tell you I was contacted and the company said, hey, will you be a provider for our prepaid legal program? I said, sure. What do I have to do? They said, well, give them a 20% discount. I said, discount off of what? They said, well, whatever your fee is. I said, well, are there set fees? I said, no. You set the fee wherever you want and then give our member a 20% discount off of your regular fee. So that's when I scratched my head and said, oh, I get it. This is a bunch of BS.
I could just raise my normal fee up to 120% and take that off, and then all of a sudden it's, I mean, what a scam is that?
Yeah, so it should be excruciatingly obvious that that is not what we're doing here. We're a law firm. We're not hiring or bringing in lawyers at our firm to do these cases. Yes, it's true if it's an out-of-state case, we hire a pro hoc vice lawyer for the purpose of getting us admitted, and then we go out there and do the case. We're radically different. And so how does this help? Well, it helps because in the case of insurance, we're not prohibited at all from representing people who commit criminal acts. I mean, that's what criminal defense lawyers do. So it's not a problem for us. Doesn't mean we're going to choose to cover everything, but we could if we wanted to.
That's right.
Cover real criminal acts by real bad guys. And we do. I mean, that's what we do. I mean, look, if you're an attorneys on retainer member, just because we say, no, you didn't make a good faith argument for self-defense, so we're not going to cover it under that part of the program, we might say, look, it's still a non-applicable legal matter. We'll give you a discount on our fees, 35% discount off of our regular fees, and we'll still represent you. And it doesn't have to be even self-defense related. We open the whole gamut of any felony case that someone gets charged with anywhere in the nation. If you're an AOR member, you got to pay for it. It's 35% off our regular rates. That's kind of like our friends and family rate. But we can still represent you. We're not prohibited.
Yeah, the point here is that we're not trying to tiptoe around a public policy exception,
That's right.
We're not trying to play the fancy word games and say, well, we can't represent you if it's a criminal act. We can only blah, 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 blah. No need to tiptoe around that stuff when you're an actual criminal defense law firm.
I've been representing people who have actually committed crimes for 30 years now, so not a problem.
So we should return to this video that we're going to be referencing kind of throughout. We'll throw some clips in there as we talk about the various parts, but I think it's important at the onset to talk about the potential biases, I might go so far as to say, that this video is being argued from. Because my understanding is that the gentleman who released this video is a self-professed employee or works for US LawShield. Is that right?
Before I start, most of you know, like I said, I work for US LawShield, largest self-defense insurance company.
In this video, he also made the point, I think with a bit of a sarcastic look on his face, that, what is it called when you pay some money, even to a law firm, and then you have a problem, and then they sort of handle it for you? That's insurance.
What's it called when you pay like a certain amount of money at regular intervals in exchange for an agreement where, should you incur a covered loss, you'll obtain legal defense at no additional charge? Is that prepaid legal, or is that legal insurance? It's both.
No, not necessarily at all, actually. I've got a case here, just happen to have it here for this video. Say Syedek Inc. v. City of Tucson. For people who are interested, you can find this case at 765 Pacific 2nd, 566. It's a 1988 case. Why am I bringing this up? Because this case specifically deals with how to figure out what's insurance and what's not insurance. And in this case, the court ruled that it is not insurance when the principal object and purpose of the contract is a service, not indemnity. Now, why does that matter? Well, if we were actually going to pay money to hire lawyers, like some of the other non-insurance programs out there do, right? They're not law firms, but they say, hey, we're not insurance. We just pay the freight to hire a lawyer in the community. They've been dinged as insurance,
Right,
because they are indemnified. They're paying the money for the lawyer. Okay, we don't do that. The huge primary expense in a deal like this is the attorney's fees, right? Everybody knows that. These companies may pay, I don't know, could be $250,000 if your case goes to trial. We don't have that problem at all. Our lawyers are on salary. I don't have to come out of my pocket for a dime on these cases. We just say, okay, it's another case on our caseload to handle, and go in there and kick butt and do a great job and get the 5-star review. We don't have to cut a check for $250 even if it goes to trial. So we're offering really a service. Yes, there are some incidental things, but in this case that I cited, there were some incidentals as well that were actually paid by the company, but the court ruled not insurance. So even though in this video the lawyer says, well, what's that? It's insurance. Nah, it's not insurance. And by the way, that's not just my opinion. It's not just the opinion of this case. It is the opinions of other lawyers who work in the insurance area, who I've paid and retained at the beginning of this program, to come to that conclusion as well.
Yeah, you brought up a really good point that I think we'll return to later in the video, where in this video he's talking about the incentives and the flow of money, and it's all the same because it's all kind of a sliding scale.
You have coverages, you have exclusions, you have premiums. It's like a triangle, and all of these things balance each other out.
Having an actual law firm is actually a paradigm shift away from that sliding scale, but we'll come back to that when we kind of break down the things that he says in the video. But I think just as a preliminary matter, this is always really important. You want to understand when anybody makes an argument, what is the lens that they're looking at their arguments through? Are there any maybe biases or something like that going on? And we certainly have reason to believe that that might be the case here, because this gentleman says, I think right at the onset, that he works for US LawShield. But that, of course, he says that that's not going to affect in any way, shape, or form his opinions here. He even, I think, encourages you, if you'd like, just disregard everything that I'm going to say.
Feel free to disregard my opinion about US LawShield if you want to.
But I do work for US LawShield.
He says, yeah, I'm not trying to pimp US LawShield here. Okay. And I notice at the end of the video, he says, I made a note of it. He says, I'm not promoting US LawShield, other than to say, you know, they're a really good company with a good policy, and I represent members daily. He admits he works for them. Look, are you proud to represent these guys or not proud to represent these guys? This sort of farting around, 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Yeah, watch this. This is going to be awesome. Hey, everybody. We proudly promote Attorneys on Retainer because we believe we've created the best product in the industry, and we financially benefit from you signing up for Attorneys on Retainer. And we're not shy to say that, and I think we're proud capitalists when it comes to these types of things, and most importantly, we're proud of our product. So
Yeah,
there you go. Try
we
that one on for size.
That's right. We've said on many occasions we want to be proud of every dime that we make, and when somebody signs up in Attorneys on Retainer, we call it a win-win agreement,
Right.
because it has to be a win for both sides, or we're not interested. And if someone's a member of AOR and they say, you know what, it doesn't feel like a win to me anymore, no problem. Call us up, send an email, no aggravation. We'll cancel you immediately. I found this interesting as well. If you go to the US LawShield website and you scroll down to the bottom of the page where it says terms and conditions, you'll find this big whole pile of terms and conditions in here. And this isn't terms and conditions, by the way, of the program. If you want that, you can't find it on the website. At least we couldn't find it on the website. The actual program that I use to review the US LawShield, you got to actually contact them and say, please send it to me. But this is about using the website. And what I noticed, if you scroll to the back, and I highlighted a whole bunch, US LawShield went to great pains to distinguish whether in each particular state you're dealing with prepaid legal or an insurance company. So US LawShield does not agree with what Mr. Reeves is saying. They think prepaid legal and insurance are different programs. And the reason they do that, of course, I don't know this for sure, it's my opinion, but many states just simply don't like insurance. And so they say, well, we're not insurance, we're prepaid legal. All right, we're neither of those. We're a law firm.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. So I think it's important to also reveal our biases about US LawShield. In fact, Mark, you've done some pretty popular videos, contract reviews, highlighting a few issues that we have with US LawShield's program. I think it's worth chatting about, just to be honest at the onset, what our positions
That's
are
right.
on US LawShield.
And we should also include a link in this video if people want to check out my more detailed review of the US LawShield program. But, as I point out in that video, that they're not shy about pointing out right at the beginning, hey, we're insurance. They use Linden Southern Insurance Company right at the top of their contract, the one you have to talk to them about getting. It makes it clear they're an insurance-based program. Section 5A right away tells you they're not going to cover it if you're not in legal possession of a weapon, and if the incident occurs at a place where firearms are prohibited. Right from the beginning, they tell you it's not covered.
We've talked a lot about this. What an outrage this is.
You want to lump us in with that? We couldn't be more clear that the Attorneys on Retainer program doesn't matter if you're in legal possession.
We don't care about sensitive spaces. We don't care about regulatory laws, anything like that in terms of trying to find a way to exclude coverage.
That's right.
We are not. You cannot lump our program in with that.
I mean, the weapon could be illegal. We'll still cover it. The person may not be allowed. It may be prohibited possessor, not allowed to have a weapon. We'll still cover it. And it could happen at a place that weapons are prohibited. We'll still cover it. Huge difference between our program.
This is such a huge point, and we harp on it all the time, but it's always worth taking a pause just to talk about how important this concept is. When you're talking about you had your gun in one of these places that, your state's legislature said, that's a sensitive area that you can't have a gun there, or you had an order of protection against you and the judge checked the DV offender box, making you lose your gun rights temporarily, something like that. These are different offenses. These are different questions legally than whether you are entitled to use self-defense in a given circumstance.
Yeah, and I know we talk about the Alan Coley case, and we don't know, frankly, why USCCA denied coverage, but they had a couple of reasons, right? They could have said, we saw the video and it doesn't look like self-defense. They also could have said, it looks like a great self-defense shoot, but it happened at a mall. And guns are prohibited at the mall, and that's the reason we're not covering. Again, we can only speculate here because we don't know. As far as I know, USCCA has never disclosed the reason. With that said, we are still trying to get Mr. Coley on so we can discuss it. I have spoken with his attorney, which is how I know a little bit about this case. But back to US LawShield. I noted on page 6, they list all their exclusions. In section 5E, they exclude criminal matters. Says it right there.
That's it.
If you use your weapon in violation of a local, state, or federal law, no coverage. Now, again, they hide in saying, well, you didn't commit a criminal matter, right? It's a valid act of self-defense. But you're in a really slippery slope, squishy area here, because they could easily decide if they wanted to. We happen to agree with the members of the grand jury who decided there was probable cause to conclude you committed an actual crime. You used your weapon in violation of local, state, or federal law.
Yeah, this is just another one of those circumstances where the first question in my head is, who's deciding? Who's deciding whether it was a valid act of self-defense while this person is presumed innocent? A valid act of self-defense is actually a legal term of art. That means a jury or whoever, the fact finder, has adjudicated you innocent. That is a...
We got to predict. It's a prediction.
That is everything before that. Whenever you're hearing attorneys analyzing videos on YouTube or something like that, looks like a good shoot. That's a valid act of self-defense. That's valid. We're just speculating.
That's right.
We're using our knowledge and our experience and our knowledge of the statutes and laws and what visually we can see, and we are predicting what a jury in that jurisdiction is going to find. So the question becomes, for the purposes of this provision of the contract, who decides?
Yeah, I mean,
who decides what's a valid act of self-defense before the person has been convicted or acquitted?
The insurance-based companies could say, look, the grand jury decided there's probable cause, or the prosecutor, who's a lawyer, who does these kinds of cases, who has the ability to consult with experts, they looked at it and they decided this is a weapon that has been used in violation of local, state, or federal law, we decline. They could certainly do that if they wanted to. So if you don't think that this is a problem, then feel free to join US LawShield. If you're concerned about this problem, maybe an insurance-based company's not for you. And then there's Section 5F in the exclusions, just excludes domestic violence. Okay, we're all the same, right? I mean, we don't exclude domestic violence. They exclude domestic violence. This is a huge area of things that can happen. People often get heated in domestic violence situations when you're dealing with an ex-spouse, an ex-boyfriend, a parent-child, brother-sister kind of thing. If you have a self-defense incident here and you got U.S. LawShield, you're out of luck.
But there's more to say about this because so many other states have these broad definitions of what constitutes a domestic relationship. For example, in Arizona, where our law firm is situated, domestic relationships for the purposes of a domestic violence charge can include things like former lovers, people that you had a romantic relationship 20, 30 years ago can technically count. What about roommates who you have no blood relation to whatsoever?
That's right.
Distant relatives.
Can be
things
very
like that.
broad.
Yeah, these types of situations come up all the time. I can't believe that a lot of these companies just totally excluded.
And then if you watch my review of U.S. LawShield, this was really, you could probably tell if you watched the video, my favorite part to really review. This is Section 6B, where it couldn't be more clear that not only does U.S. LawShield pick your lawyer, like you got nothing to say about who your lawyer is. I love that they put a little, but if you don't like the lawyer that we provide for you, you can hire your own lawyer at your own expense. In page 7, section 9A, this is my very favorite part. I hope everybody watches the U.S. LawShield because you're not going to believe me unless you see and look at the contract. It says there's no guarantee that the lawyer that they provide, the lawyer that U.S. LawShield provides, they don't guarantee anything about the honesty, the proficiency, the accuracy, the resourcefulness of the lawyer that they provide for you. And if you don't like something about that lawyer, don't complain to U.S. LawShield. They have no responsibility, even for malpractice. Bring your complaint to that lawyer or the state bar.
Wow.
I mean, we're not even going to look, we picked the lawyer for you, and then we're not going to guarantee we're even giving you an honest lawyer, a proficient lawyer.
I just thought that provision where they say, if you don't like the lawyer that we pick for you, good news, you can hire one at your own expense.
Yeah.
We're not going to pay for it.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if they had to specify that in the contract that you have the right to hire a lawyer at your own expense. It's almost like they're granting you that right. You have that right already without signing their contract.
You know, you would think after I've picked them apart like this in that contract that they would have changed their contract. First of all, take out the language about we don't guarantee to give you an honest lawyer. I mean, come on. If they give you a lawyer and the lawyer's not honest, they should own it, right? It's their fault, and they're disclaiming that in their contract. And you should be able to bring a complaint to U.S. LawShield. They shouldn't be just saying, I'll go talk to the state bar. I think that's pretty outrageous. So, look, if you haven't seen my review of the U.S. LawShield, check the link in this video, because I wouldn't believe me unless I saw it in the contract. It sounds so outrageous.
All right, so there are biases. We've obviously got strong feelings about U.S. LawShield as we do with, I mean, we're not just picking on them. The only reason we're bringing them up is because we're reviewing this video, right? But
I take that as an invitation, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So just to be clear, we have these problems with all of these insurance-backed companies that have similar provisions, but we just wanted to, be transparent and share our biases towards U.S. LawShield. So that being said, let's kind of go through some of the greatest hits from this video, Mark. What do you say?
Sure.
All right. What are some of your favorite quotes from the video?
I love it when he says they all run on the same math.
The point is, for any legitimate insurance company, they all run on math, buddy. Google an actuary. Whether it's insurance, prepaid legal, whatever.
No, we don't run on the same math. Yeah, I guess if you exclude the fact that they got to pay a lawyer for lawyer's fees and we don't, or other than just the normal salary that we're paying, no, it's not the same math. That seems like a pretty ridiculous type of a quote in a statement to make.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier, and there really is a difference in. I mean, he's right about one thing: is that you have to follow the money, right? Every
Yes.
business is trying to be profitable.
Yep.
Every business is trying to make a profit at the end of the day, and in pursuing those profits, it's all about an allocation of different resources. But to say that a law firm with attorneys on salary, that we don't have to pay one dime more to send them out anywhere to handle a case, is on the same calculus as an insurance underwriter who's trying to preserve as much money for an insurance company by disclaiming liability wherever they can, that's a ridiculous assertion.
Yeah, I mean, my regular hourly rate is $650 an hour. Imagine the insurance company calculating in that whether they got to pay me to do a trial. You know how expensive that's going to be at the end? That is so different than one of the lawyers here, or even me at the firm, going out and just doing the case. I mean, we have caseloads. We have another case to do. No big deal for us. I mean, okay, it's not free, but it's certainly not the same math. No doubt about that. I loved the statement right at the beginning that the misinformation is, quote, pissing him off, end quote.
I have seen a lot of misinformation out there lately, and it's kind of pissing me off.
Sorry that you're pissed off, but I didn't hear any misinformation anywhere. Even on the emails he put up on the screen, I think these are people questioning whether they can cover criminal acts. And again, they can't cover a real criminal act, and they don't cover a real criminal act. What they do cover is the allegation of a criminal act, so long as they've decided that it's not really a criminal act. They've disagreed with the prosecutor and the grand jury, and they've made the conclusion up until the point that somebody is either found guilty or pleads guilty. I mean,
That's right.
it's living in a very squishy area for sure.
So he did have one good point here, actually. We got to give credit where credit's due, and that's when he talks about the companies that don't cover misdemeanors and don't cover appeals.
So you could have narrow coverage, like only insuring felony charges and not misdemeanor charges, like some plans out there.
Because it's true.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
a lot of these different companies, including attorneys on retainer, up to this moment, has been covering nothing but felony defense cases. But we've got some exciting news in response to this.
Yeah, I took that as a suggestion, and I got to say, I didn't like the fact that there was a real ding on our program. Like, did he say, hey, they don't cover misdemeanors, they don't cover appeals. That's absolutely true, right? If you look at our website, that's what it says. But we're changing gears here.
Yeah, I think it's important before we make this kind of cool announcement that we have to kind of explain the evolution of our program.
Yes.
Because this has been a long process getting this program squared away. Our subscribers who watch us on YouTube know this. It's gone through many different iterations over the last maybe couple of years while we're fine-tuning everything. And in fact, many of the changes that we made, we turned directly to our subscribers and said, what do you guys want to see?
Yeah.
What's your ideal, all the bells and whistles, tell us what do you like, what's important to you in these types of programs, what'll give you more of a peace of mind. And frankly, they've been our best critics and the people who've helped us improve our program the most. And when you're just starting an entrepreneurial venture like this, a nationwide self-defense program backed by a real law firm, there's a certain amount of risk that you take when you're initially starting it up, right?
right.
So when we're doing our calculus of how to keep this program a win-win, because that's what we're interested in, we have to calculate a whole lot of different things. Like there's the fees that we charge people for their annual subscriptions and their monthly subscriptions. Then there's the amount that we cover. There's the laws and regulations of all the different states. And when we did that calculus, it did not make financial sense for us to extend our coverage, our self-defense coverage at that point, to misdemeanors. There was too much financial risk for an early onset startup entrepreneurial venture to just say, fine, we'll cover it all. Well, lucky us, all of our subscribers have helped us get to the next level. And as it turns out, people love the program that we created. We've got tons of signups coming in, and we are now to the position where we can comfortably extend our coverage. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, this isn't something typically law firms do, right? I mean, the law firm's been around now 27 years, and so the law firm's not a startup. We've been here a long time. The whole time we've been doing major felonies and representing people in many different states. But when you start up a program like Attorneys on Retainer, you want to start slow and grow it carefully and be responsible and make sure you're delivering the same high level of service that you have the entire time. And frankly, the program's grown really fast, much faster than we expected, and we've hired more people. And so I feel really comfortable now saying I don't like the fact that lawyers like James Reeves come out there and ding our program and say they don't cover misdemeanors. So
A valid ding, too.
a valid ding. And so we need to end that valid ding because We want to make money doing what we love to do and offering the best, not the second best program, the best program. And we're going to keep building it and making it better and better. And no, we're not going to raise our rates. We're not charging anything extra.
Everybody is grandfathered in.
Everybody's
who already
in.
is a subscriber to the program.
That's right. You're going to get the same coverage if you get dinged with a misdemeanor in another state and it's a self-defense incident. It happened after you signed up and you say, hey, look, I at least tried to act in self-defense. That's going to be good enough for us and we're going to handle it. So on one hand, we'll give Attorney James Reeves some credit for offering a valid ding against the Attorneys on Retainer program. On the other hand, we're fixing it so that ding goes away.
Absolutely. All right. So I'm really excited about that. We'll put more information on our website, attorneysonretainer.us, when we get it. But let's keep going through these fun points of the video, Mark.
Now, there was something that, look, Mr. Reeves is a brother criminal defense lawyer, and I treat criminal defense lawyers as special. I think we do a very important job, and I don't want to bust on him too much. I'm not trying to start a thing. But I got to say, when he talked about the member called him after a shooting in South Louisiana.
I had a member call me to make a claim after he committed a mass shooting in South Louisiana. The dude shot his neighbor, drove around shooting strangers. It was in the paper. It was like last year.
And then he went on. He said he shot neighbors and he shot strangers, and he said it was in the paper and it was a high-profile case.
High-profile mass shooting case.
I instantly thought to myself, are you talking about this publicly? Do you have a signed media release, which I'm very skeptical of since he didn't actually take the case? This kind of thing bothers me because, we lawyers have not only attorney-client privilege, which is something that applies in court, we also have an ethical duty to maintain client confidences. You notice we don't talk about our cases. There are some on the website. Each and every one of those cases is a case we have a written, signed, blessed by our ethics attorney media release that tracks with the ethics rules where the client has said, I want you to talk about this case. I'm happy for you to talk about this case.
Yeah, keep that in mind. Every single time you've seen our law firm in the media, we had to get specific permission from the client, not only to talk to the media, but any way that we wanted to talk about
That's
it.
right.
Like all those articles on our website, all of our high-profile cases where we've spoken to newspapers or on podcasts or national press, local press, we have to get a special media release form for each way that we're planning on disclosing the information.
Then there was a second one that he talked about as well, the one he referenced as a shooting where he got a plea and he laid out exactly what the deal. Sound like a great deal.
In that case, the driver, let's call her Stephanie, got pissed off at another driver on the roads. Tons of road rage calls, get them all the time. They took turns tailgating and swerving at each other before Stephanie produced a firearm and cracked off 3 rounds in the air with her child in the car. She then claimed self-defense. She got arrested, of course. She was charged with vehicular aggravated assault, a charge that would have put her in jail for up to 30 years. I got it pled down to 2 months of probation and a $400 fine after like 8 or 9 months.
What are you doing talking about that publicly?
To give him the benefit of the doubt, we don't know this.
That's right.
He could have gotten signed media releases for both of these clients.
That's true.
I'd be less surprised on the second client because it sounds like he got a good result, and he may have turned to them and say, hey, do you mind if I kind of briefly and vaguely mention you on my podcast as an example of a good result? But I agree with you, Mark. I'd be surprised if the first person whose coverage was disclaimed, who was left with no coverage and whose case he ultimately didn't take because it wasn't covered, I'd be surprised if they then said, after finding out they were disclaimed, and you know what, I'll go ahead and sign. You can talk about me on your podcast, feel free, even though I'm, going to probably go to prison now and end up with a public defense.
Yeah, we're lawyers first, right? Those are the kinds of people we have here. High character, high commitment to ethics. Lawyers first, above making money, above everything else. If you hire us, we take our craft very seriously.
And it shouldn't be a surprise for people to find out that the majority of people who go through a self-defense incident, who have to make a life-changing decision, even if it's the right decision, it ultimately changes the life of many of our clients. As it turns out, not surprisingly, the majority of those people don't want to be used as a promotional material, don't want to be talked about on a podcast, don't want to have it blasted out for the benefit of the program.
That's right.
So,
I mean, we have AOR clients we're representing right now, but that's as far as I can go. I don't go I can't tell you anything about the details. I can't tell you what's going on unless we get a signed media release. And so I didn't like that part of his video. I think that's pretty clear.
Any other bones to pick with the video?
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting and telling, and I'm going to give him some credit for very quickly, right at about 5 minutes and 47 seconds, very quickly saying criminal activities excluded.
One or both of those would be excluded as business use of a personal auto, and one of them, the latter, would be excluded as criminal activity.
Good for you. That's the truth. Thank you for saying that in your video. I appreciate that. Maybe we'll put a clip in that so people can see right
I
there.
still have the question, though. Who decides when the person is presumed innocent whether or not it's criminal activity, right?
Yep.
Because we hear about this, and you guys have seen us review these things all the time where some insurance underwriter makes the decision, not a non-lawyer, right? A non-lawyer makes, even sometimes over the objection of the assigned lawyer, as was the case with Kayla Giles, the insurer's like, no, we've decided while he or she is presumed innocent that this isn't a valid act of self-defense and disclaim it.
All right, so all this just to get to the end of his video. We all offer the same product at the end of the day.
We all offer the same product at the end of the day. It's just a different balance. Coverages, exclusions, premiums. What's covered, what's excluded from that coverage, and how much do you pay for it?
No. We don't all offer the same product at the end of the day. We offer completely different products, very different services, very different circumstances, very different legal restrictions. I also note in the comments of his video, he made a point which is valid, I guess, as far as it goes, which, hey, if you're dealing with an insurance company and they don't deliver, they can have consequences. Excellent point. Same is true for lawyers.
Absolutely.
We gotta, you and I have a ticket to practice law.
Do you think that the bar of any state would be fine with a lawyer just fraudulently advertising things, collecting the money, and then saying, I'm not going to deliver
Not going to deliver.
like that?
So,
Do you think they'd allow us to practice law?
Right, to try to distinguish with the Attorneys on Retainer program by saying, well, insurance companies are regulated and we can't just leave people hanging. There are consequences. Lawyers are regulated too. We have a state bar out there, and they are, maybe a lot of people don't know this, but they're pretty tough.
We're also regulated in a way by the free market. We want to
That's
make
right.
lots and lots of happy clients. We want to get many, many 5-star reviews. We want to
Which
get
is what we have.
We're a private. We're not the government.
Yeah, that's right.
We are a private employer, and so therefore, as part of the free market, we want to make the market happy. So the market regulates us. You guys regulate us.
That's right.
And avoiding stories like the ones you hear, the horror stories, in my opinion, of what you hear with like the Coleys of the world or the Kayla Giles of the world or something like that, is what makes us a good program.
Yeah, we're going to start bringing our lawyers in to do some of these videos. I want people to understand how excited our lawyers are to actually go out and represent people. That's what they do. There's very few things that make them happier than when we walk in their office, hey, we got a nice, juicy case for you. Big
And
deal.
not only on the criminal side, on the civil side too.
That's right. We got to unveil more about our civil side as well. We are loaded for bear and ready to go.
Can't wait to continue to introduce the world to our pack of wild wolves that we have over here at Attorneys on Retainer. Check us out, attorneysonretainer.us, attorneysforfreedom.com if you want to learn about the law firm, not insurance company, the law firm that's backing this program. Any final parting thoughts today, Mark?
I don't think so.
All
I
right.
think that covers everything.
All right, sounds good, guys. Until next time, this has been Attorney Andy Marcantel and Attorney Marc J. Victor.
Peace.